causing havoc throughout the country and discrediting the august house.
I shall continue to lead a government that is fully committed to maintaining the integrity of our state, promoting the unity of our nation, and enhancing the peace and security of all citizens and their livelihoods. I am bound under sacred constitutional mandate to respect, uphold, and defend the Constitution of Kenya, which declares that all sovereign power belongs to the people, and that this power shall be exercised only in accordance with the Constitution. The government will therefore uphold its constitutional mandate to secure our nation and its development, and shall treat every threat to national security and the integrity of our state as an existential danger to our republic. Accordingly, I assure Kenyans that we shall provide a full, effective, and expeditious response to today's treasonous events.
Now, youthful protesters have taken to the streets early Tuesday, to reject the Finance Bill 2024. Nairobi, Mombasa, Eldoret, Nakuru, Nyamira, and Nyeri saw peaceful demonstrations, barring Nairobi, which later recorded not peaceful protest. In Nairobi, police could be seen lobbing tear gas on demonstrators who remained resilient. Now, 195 members of parliament, voted yes to the finance bill to pass it to the third reading, while 104 members of parliament voted no, hence brought chaos to protesters who were against it, wanting the MPs to reject the bill at any cost. Emmanuel Marwa takes stock of Tuesday.
Live bullets. It was drama early Tuesday morning as protesters from the Generation Z could never be handled by the police in the city of Nairobi. The protesters were tear-gassed and even others were arrested by the police officers who eventually landed on their hands. The chaos erupted after one of the protesters was killed by the police firearms while protesting by shooting him towards the parliament building at the CBD area. There was a heavy police presence along Parliament Road as the security personnel used the water tankers to block protesters from accessing Parliament, where MPs are currently voting close by close in the Finance Bill 2024-2025. Police were on location as early 6 a.m. in a bid to secure the premises where protesters have been threatening to occupy Parliament. The angry protesters was against the police brutality that eventually makes them to press more to the parliament by weakening the police force to retain the back way and way away of the parliament area.
By now, a majority of the Kenyans already understand what the finance bill is about. They have read it. They have read the concessions Ruto had to make to the finance bill so as to sweeten it to the people. Yes. Then the people are saying, you cannot pacify us with the concessions that you made. We do not want you to amend that thing. We want you to scrap it off. Because you forced the finance bill 2024 on us, and you negotiated with Raila and with Azimio over this. And they auctioned us. The people feel that the opposition of this country have auctioned us. We have nothing against the opposition. But then they still went to a negotiation with Ruto over the finance bill in 2024. And after that negotiation, nothing much really happened. Now they are boldly prompting another finance bill this year because they think that they have pocketed Raila Odinga, who is the chief opposition leader in Kenya. So we, the people, Generation Z, are not comfortable with this. We are not comfortable with the pocketing of opposition, so that they are not going. They will not denounce the government.
The angry protesters was against the police brutality that eventually makes them to press more to the parliament by weakening the police force to retain the back and away of their parliament area.
react when the government goes wrong. So we've come out in large numbers to tell the government to its face. Because I don't know if public participation works in other countries, but in this country, public participation is ceremonial. Public participation in Kenya has never worked. After all, we went to those public participations. We gave our views, but they did not consider our views. The same way we gave views in the public participation of 2024 against the housing levy, but they still passed the housing levy, the finance bill with the housing levy. They did little amendments to it, but the people were opposed to it. So we're saying the dialogue that the president wants is this. He wants to bribe us. He wants to identify leaders amongst the Generation Z so as to buy them out. We are opposed to that. We do not want to be bought. We do not want to negotiate with the government. The only dialogue we're having with this government is 1, they should scrap off the finance bill. 2, the second dialogue we're having with this government, they should change the culture they have. So we should change the culture of looting, the culture of tribalism, the culture of corruption, and the citizens the citizenry should not take it normal and normalize it that the country is going to the dogs. We've left this to Generation X, we've left this to the millennials, and they have not fixed it. They have tried, but they have not fixed it. We want to fix this country, and that starts with fixing tribalism, fixing corruption, fixing bad governance, and ensuring that public say is taken into account. Yeah. My name is James Mulamba.
The MPs from opposition side condemned the incidents where the protesters were killed on spot during demonstration along Parliament Road and other areas in the city. More than 10 people reported have been died after serious injuries and other gunshots. Hundreds of the protesters were injured and taken to Kenyatta Hospital and other nearby health facilities for treatment. LSK leaders led by Faith Adhiambo were also against the police shooting and wanted the young people that were abducted to be released and be free in their own country.
Saizi wameua almost 10 people. Saizi majenzizi wameshaingia huko, wacha wa occupy hiyo parliament. Hakuna haja ya kuua mtu yeyote. Polisi wanafaa wapatia hawa majenzizi protection. Sisi tuko hapa na nyinyi, sio kuua watu.
Sema mene tekel. Babu, sema mene tekel.
The revolution is on and we support the youth 100%. Kabisa. Tuna support my youth 100%. Inchi ni yetu, future ni yetu. Hatukubali tena kutawaliwa na hiyo fala sasa.
Like Willie Kimani, the list of Kenyans killed by law enforcers keep going, and we cannot continue to be silent. No, we cannot allow this to continue, because today it's Rex and tomorrow they'll come for me, and the next day it will be you who are watching quietly and listening. On Friday 24th in 1965, Pio Gama Pinto was killed for allegedly engaging the then President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta in a shouting match over the sessional paper number 10, which virtually legitimized capitalism in Kenya. However, Pinto's death was not the end of it all. The struggle has continued to this day. The seed of struggle that was planted by our nation's freedom fighters continues to bear fruit to this day. Dear Mr. President, if the spirit of struggle did not die with our forefathers, who were enslaved, tortured, maimed, and eventually killed, what makes you think that it will end today? I have seen dismissive remarks by politicians and some government officials all over the mainstream and social media about the role of Gen Z in shaping Kenya's future. It seems a number of our leaders think that this is some kind of joke or a game that will soon end or simply fade away. Well, if this is so, then please note, we are no longer going to continue to be pawns in a game of chess. The wave of police brutality on peaceful protesters, abductions and killings of innocent Kenyans has pushed us to review our approach and involvement in this noble campaign for justice for Kenyans. We call upon all advocates, other professional bodies and Kenyans of goodwill to stand up for this country. Let us stand for peace. We ask the President to remember that it is this youthful generation that gave him power, that put him where he is. Let us not kill our children. Let us not kill this generation.
Emmanuel Marwa, reporting for EBN TV, Nairobi.
Well, thanks, Mara, for covering that protest for us. Now, for the first time in the history of Kenya, citizens stormed the gates of the freshly completed parliament buildings. The Gen Z crowd forced their way through the gates, destroying any obstacle on their way. The rage became stronger right after members of parliament voted yes to the Finance Bill 2024. The final stage is now upon the president to sign the bill into law. And 195 members voted yes, 104, voted no, with 3 votes counted as spoiled.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm here to address you. You must go. Ruto must go. Kwapa na hatuendi. Kwapa tunalala huku na hatuendi. We don't fear you guys. You hypocrites. We don't fear you. Mr. Speaker, we don't fear you. Tuko ndani. We stomped inside. Sisi ni nani?
Now, at least 18 people have been confirmed dead in the ongoing protests against the finance bill. Many who were seriously injured were rushed to various hospitals across the county, leaving hospital staff overworked and understaffed. In spite of the heightened security presence, the demonstrators were able to get through, costing them not only their lives, but their health as well. Now, businesses across the country were vandalized during the protest. Majority were belonging to members of parliament who voted for the finance bill. Nairobi County Governor's office was also not spared as fire ravaged the premises. The very water used to fight protesters was used to put out the fires in parliament and City Hall as well. Supermarkets and shops along the streets of CBD had to shut down, while those that did not fell victims of robbery and violence and vandalism. Bungoma County was not left out in the protests. The young and old joined together to protest the Finance Bill 2024. It was a survival for the fittest as police tried to calm the crowd that grew by the second to stand in solidarity with fellow Kenyans across the country rejecting the proposed finance bill that is a step away into law.
By now, a majority of the Kenyans already understand what the finance bill is about. They have read it. They have read the concessions Ruto had to make to the finance bill so as to sweeten.
All right, the newspapers, I spoke about the headlines and just the story they depict this morning. And I'll begin with the Standard newspaper that speaks of deaths, mayhem. Deaths, mayhem. Parliament falls in an unprecedented move where youthful protesters overrun house as at least 13 protesters are gunned down. Hundreds others injured and property worth millions of shillings destroyed in fierce day-long countrywide battles by youths with the police. Now, President William Ruto said the events were treasonous and vowed to hit back. And that is the headline on the Standard as depicted on your television this morning, deaths and mayhem. Now, report from as protesters occupy House, they occupied Parliament, went inside the Parliament itself. And in a scenes akin to the US Capitol Hill attack in 2021, protesters broke down a section of the barrier next to Jomo Kenyatta's mausoleum. They lowered the national flag, lit fires, and destroyed property before storming the Senate and the National Assembly chambers. Members of Parliament had to literally run, scamper to safety. Now, KDF have been deployed to quell the riots in a Gazette notice that was issued by the Defense Cabinet Secretary, that is Aden Duale, and he declared a security emergency and gazetted the deployment of soldiers to help the National Police Service handle the protests across the country. Now, the finance bill has as well sailed through, and despite protests, 195 Kenya Kwanza MPs voted yes, while the Standard puts the number of Azimio at 109 to see the bill sail through. Early in the morning, some legislators voted like machines, even when the wrong clauses were read out as Azimio counterparts engaged in songs and jeering. Now, the Standard has put at 145 numbers of those injured. 125 are at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Another 20 are at various hospitals, be it gunshot wounds, be it, other wounds that have not been caused by the gunshot, while 13 protesters have been killed in demonstrations across the country, 10 in Nairobi, 3 in Nakuru, and 1 in Kitale. Well, we'll put that number at least 13 people have died due to the protests. Now, that is a story that is on has been covered extensively on pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to page 10. And, the Standard in itself has got pictures of just what was happening. It talks of deaths and destruction in the wake of youth protests across the country to oppose the new taxes. It talks about Kenya grinds to a halt as Gen Z protesters make good their threat of occupying Parliament. Also talks about MPs backing tax bill pay heavy price of yesterday's protest, because as the country erupted in anger after members of Parliament voted yes, a number of MPs who supported it suffered heavy losses after their homes and properties were attacked and vandalized. The national government CDF offices of some targeted MPs were razed down as demonstrators, who were mainly the youth, protested the passage of the bill. And Molo Member of Parliament Kimani Kuria's home was torched by members of the public. We also have Kapseret Member of Parliament Oscar Sudi's Timber Exo Club, which was launched recently, was vandalized by protesters who threw stones at the entertainment spot, while some took away alcoholic drinks while chanting Ruto must go slogans. Now, talk about Kieni Cheni, Member of Parliament, Wainaina, whose supermarket that is, that is affiliated to him, and the branches as well, were touched and vandalized and robbed as well. And that is just part of some of the MPs who've had to pay a heavy price. Also, mayhem in President Rift Valley backyard, Kericho, Eldoret were out on the street. Demos were contrast to previous anti-state protests, which with the region ignored. Now, protesters engaged in police running battles and left behind a trail of destruction. It also speaks of protesters invade House as finance bill is approved. MPs had to scamper for safety, literally, in Parliament. Protesters touch Embu Governor's office, vehicles, and UDA offices. Now, violence rocked Embu County as protesters set ablaze the governor's offices, vehicles on the premises, and then turned their rage to the area UDA offices. Efforts to quell the protests seemed futile as protesters continued to disrupt businesses and traffic on major highways. Now, police shoot one, injures scores of protesting youth, and according to reports on the ground, that is what turned these demonstrations from peaceful to non-peaceful, because of the one death that was reported. And the Standard also speaks about police clash with protesters who almost stormed Coast State House. The same was also witnessed in Nakuru, where protesters nearly stormed into the Nakuru State House, as well as Kakamega. That really depicts the rage that was felt across the country. A defiant president orders crackdown on quote-unquote dangerous people, financiers, organizers, he says, orchestrators as well, who are he termed as criminals, and says he will unleash security agencies on planners and financiers. Defense CS Aiden Duale deployed KDF to help the National Police Service. However, according to lawyers, that is unconstitutional because you cannot deploy KDF to help the police unless the National Assembly approves. Question is, did the National Assembly approve? Well, it did not, because there was no sitting in Parliament. Also, uproar over spike in cases of abductions by state agencies. Some of the Kenyans are still missing. And according to the Law Society of Kenya, they're looking for Gabriel Oguda. They're also looking for Frank Githiaka Franje. They're also looking for Dre Mwangi, Walt Smith, Hila 254, and many more who are yet to be identified. But there are some whose location has been known, including Shadrach Kiprono, aka Shad Halif, who was released yesterday. Who are the abductors? Well, there's no word about that. There's also Osama Otero, who, according to some of the friends, was released, but there are some persons who are still missing. So that is the headline on the Standard this morning. Shows the pictures really tell the story. On top of the pages, you can see protesters who literally went in front of a police water vehicle, were blocking, the drivers not be able to see where they're driving at some point were able to block, the water pipe so it's not releasing water. At some point, they were able to also damage the vehicle's tires in an attempt to make it not move at all and to stall. So that is the headline on the Standard newspaper. Now let's go to the Daily Nation this morning, that tells the story of pandemonium. Pandemonium. That is the headline on the Nation this morning. Pandemonium, perhaps just the word that describes what exactly happened at various places within the country and the capital city. Now, Daily Nation reads, Finance Bill Crisis, President Ruto issues treason warning as military unleashed against riots. It was a move like no other after a mass of youthful protesters, angered by the government's move to forge ahead with the controversial tax bill, breached security and broke into Parliament buildings, the seat of the country's legislature. Young lives were lost while hundreds were injured when police opened fire on demonstrators who had taken to the streets in 35 counties, more than half of the 47 across the country. Property worth millions of shillings was destroyed, already shattered shops vandalized, businesses vandalized, businesses associated with some MPs attacked in a day of heightened pandemonium. And that is the headline on the Daily Nation this morning. They've also covered it extensively from pages 2 all the way to page 12. They've got a picture of a protester who clashed with the police. They've got a picture of just inside the Parliament buildings, how it looked like. They've also got a picture of protesters who are blocking Uhuru Highway. At the same time, a commentary that reads, let's reason together, Kenya belongs to all of us. However, let me take you through page by page. Now, page 2 of the Daily Nation says, national shame, hustlers run riot as MPs scamper for safety in a day of drama. It also reads, restore sanity, Ruto urged over outbreak of violence, that is by the church. President says Parliament breach is an act of treason. Ruto also got anti-tax demonstrations struck 35 counties as youths take over Parliament buildings. So 35 counties in Kenya which witnessed anti-finance bill protests include Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Uasin Gishu, Nyeri, Meru, Laikipia, Kiambu, Murang'a, Kirinyaga, Nyandarua, Homa Bay, Siaya, Kisii, Nyamira, Kakamega, Bungoma, Trans Nzoia, Bomet, Kericho, Baringo, Turkana, Samburu, Narok, West Pokot, Kajiado, Kwale, Tana River, Kilifi, Taita Taveta, Makueni, Machakos, Garissa, and Marsabit. So those are some of the counties that recorded protests. I should add Bungoma as well to that list, which brings it to about 36 out of the 47 counties. Now, it also reads inside abduction squads targeting top influencers. Inside abduction squads targeting top influencers, where a special team drawn from the National Intelligence Service and the Directorate of Criminal Investigations is behind the abductions targeting activists and influencers with massive following on social media. Now, this team, the Daily Nation has learned, was formed on Sunday following a high-level security meeting in Nairobi. Also incorporated in the squad are officers from other specialized agencies like the Anti-Terror Police Unit. With hours to the start of the protest, the team of heavily armed operatives, mostly in plain clothes, that is led by a former DCI operative, now in the NIC, went into action. Also in the squad are selected individuals from the DCI Operation Action Team based at the DCI headquarters. And so persons that, have been abducted are quite a number, and, they're still rallying online. People are still rallying online to ensure that, they get these persons back home safe and sound. Also, the Daily Nation has been able to do a printout of just how members of parliament voted on the report of the National Assembly Committee of the whole House. Now, there are those that voted yes, 195 of them. There are those that voted no. And there are those that were absent as well from Parliament. And I can assure you this is a list that will probably dictate how this country votes in the future elections, that is of 2027. And so pandemonium was released amongst some of these MPs that voted yes in some of their constituencies. They've had to report loss of property. And the question is now what next, because they have approved this particular bill, passed it through the finance bill third reading stage, which basically means just one more stage left, and that is ascension into law by President William Ruto. Question is, what next? Those are the headlines on the Daily Nation, which also talks of protesters in heavy casualties amid running battles with police. An official at KNH told the Nation that the facility had received about 115 casualties by 6 p.m. That was yesterday. Also, state deploys KDF to deal with riots. Is it constitutional? As the CS for Defense Aiden Dwale declares security emergency. Now, chest thumping, opulence floating, state officials who angered the youth, and that is perhaps why there was a confrontation between the youth and the police. So those are the headlines on the local dailies. While finally the Star speaks of deaths, chaos, rage. This is it. Deaths, chaos, rage, that is on the Star newspaper. Pages 2 to 9 has been covered extensively by the Star. Angry mob loots parliament as anti-tax law protests sweep the country. That is the headline that has been printed out on the Star. Wave of abductions fuel protests, cops condemned. Kenyans among most active, in terms of protests globally. Also chaos, bloodshed, rage, and deaths. That is a story that has been covered as well. Now, the highlights of the Bloody Tuesday: a section of Parliament set on fire, parts of City Hall burnt, several protesters shot at Parliament buildings, MPs and speakers of Parliament evacuated, police overwhelmed along major highways, protesters stormed restaurants in Eldoret associated with the MP Oscar Sudi. And so don't shoot, Red Cross pleads with police, and some of their ambulances as well recorded damaged and vandalism across the Kenya, actually the capital city, as most were being used to ferry those that were injured. So those are the headlines on the newspapers this morning. All right, do allow us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, hopefully our guest, that is Joyce Wamahi, will be here so that we can have a conversation about this protest and just take stock of the events that happened on Tuesday. So stay with us, we'll be back shortly. Like his life depended on it. Now that is a proper definition of Kiswahili's mguu niponye. Elsewhere, Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi has put to task the Inspector General of Police Japheth Koome to explain the wave of abductions witnessed in the country of youth activists and digital influencers. Opiyo Wandayi has confirmed the unknown whereabouts of columnist and social commentator Gabriel Oguda, and the latest cases add to the protesters who were captured over the weekend, such as Shadrach Kiprono alias Shad Khalif, who was abducted on Saturday night in Nairobi's South B area before being released. Others' whereabouts remain unclear, and people behind X pages like Franje, Dre Mwangi, and Osama Otero have been others that have been abducted.
The leader majority has explained to me, and I think it is an innocent motion, Honorable Speaker. I will second it. But as I do so, Honorable Speaker, I'm reminded that, and I'm happy with your ruling, your directive to the leader majority on the issue I raised earlier. I'm very happy with that in 2 hours' time we shall get some feedback. But I'm also reminded that in addition to Oguda, there are other 7 Kenyans who are also under abduction. And these are Osama, one called Dre, Tempa CR7, Harriet, Shad Kiprono, Franje, and Wald Smith. These are young Kenyans. They are basically Gen Z, who are also missing.
They are also parliamentary staffers?
No.
They are not?
They are not. They are Kenyans.
Yes.
They are Kenyans who are patriotic, Honorable Speaker. So as the leader majority consults with the IG of police, Mr. Koome, let the IG also come forth with the whereabouts of these other 7 Kenyans.
Pass on the names to the majority leader.
Yes. These are young Kenyans who are fighting for our rights, for the rights of the downtrodden, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
I second.
Order, member for Kieni, take your seat. Take the nearest seat. Honorable members, order, Honorable Kwame, take your seat.
Now, President William Ruto met governors, members of parliament, and county assembly leaders from all the coastal counties and agreed to form a committee of professionals to look at the issues touching on Miraa and Muguka. The meeting followed another session of President with the leaders of Embu on the ban of Muguka. They agreed to meet as leaders from the 2 sides to fashion a law that will protect the interests of both parties.
They had actually classified them as severely affected government, and that's when he started agitating and mobilizing.
Sisi kama viongozi ambao tumekuja kuwakilisha wengine ni kuwa tunasema hatutaki mgoka ndani ya pwani. Na sikuwa hatutaki tu, hatutaki kwa sababu uko na madhara. Kuna madhara ambayo yamejionesha waziwazi, si hali ya kuficha. Na kama paka mtoto mdogo anajua madhara ya mgoka, hii ni kumaanisha Kenya nzima inajua. Na madhara zaidi, wale wenzetu ambao pia wanakuza mgoka, tena wanarudi na wanaongeza vitu zingine, madawa mengine katika huo mgoka.
Since the respective coastal counties issued executive orders prohibiting the entry, transportation, distribution, sale and use of mogoka and its products within respective counties, the mogoka ban has occupied the national conversation space, and for a good reason. The ban on mogoka in Jumuiya counties za Pwani has ignited a national public debate and the pronouncement by the executive, judiciary and the entire, and if not the entire, but majority of the 47 counties.
We agree, whether it is heroin, whether it is cocaine, whether it is all the other substances that have a problem that lead to addiction, that lead to citizens being less than the human beings they are supposed to be. We're all united as a people, as a country, across religions, across communities, across counties, that we must stand up to drug and substance abuse and deal with it. All we should not do is to do something that makes this thing into an illegal business. We are better off when it is on the surface, we can control. If the problem is price and all the other problems it has, how do we, the council have recommended, I think, 3 or so people to go into the pricing committee of Mira and other things. How do we find a legal way of managing this to the best interest of the people in the coast and the people in Meru and Embu? If we can strike that balance, and leaders, you are the leaders of Kenya, and together with me, I am sure we can find a way forward.
All right, so we finish with where we started. And President William Ruto addressed the country on Tuesday night, describing the breach of parliament as treasonous, vowing to crack down on the organizers and financiers of the protests, which entered the 5th day. President Ruto was addressing the nation following a day of protests that has killed at least 5 people and injured over 125 others. According to the head of state's criminal hijacked a critical conversation, causing havoc throughout the country and desecrating the August House.
I shall continue to lead a government that is fully committed to maintaining the integrity of our state, promoting the unity of our nation, and enhancing the peace and security of all citizens and their livelihoods. I am bound under sacred constitutional mandate to respect, uphold, and defend the Constitution of Kenya, which declares that all sovereign power belongs to the people, and that this power shall be exercised only in accordance with the Constitution. The government will therefore uphold its constitutional mandate to secure our nation and its development, and shall treat every threat to national security and the integrity of our state as an existential danger to our republic. Accordingly, I assure Kenyans that we shall provide a full, effective, and expeditious response to today's treasonous events.
All right, so at that point, I'd love to wrap up this broadcast this morning as we continue to take stock of what happened on Tuesday following the protests countrywide over the tax proposals or the finance bill, which has already passed and is only waiting for President William Ruto's signature. So that is all we had for you as of now. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have a good morning.